Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Coach Andrea and I, and we are going to be talking through how Andrea has grown her lower body as someone who doesn't build muscle easily. I'm really excited to get into this one because I think it'll be cool to kind of unpack what you've done over the last few years specifically to help build so much muscle. And I think it will also really resonate with a lot of listeners. I know a ton of the clients who start with us hey, I want to build lower body. I've been training hard for years. I feel like I'm doing everything right, and I'm still not seeing the changes that I want there. Because you've made a tremendous amount of progress there, I would say, especially over the last few years. And again, I know it hasn't been something that's necessarily come easy for you. And you were doing things quite well before. So I think this will be so helpful for a ton of the listeners. But before we get into that, fill us in. Anything new going on with you this week?
Dieting and just waiting on getting some labs. So I think here in like a month, I'm going to get some labs. I got a little bit of a food bump this week. And really, like right after the photo shoot, I kind of jumped up like 2 pounds just with more
Okay.
food and water and sodium and all that stuff. Um, and then I've kind of held right around 2.5 pounds throughout these last like 3, 4 weeks.
Okay.
Um, So I feel good. And I think next week I might start being able to push training a little bit harder. I also got another upper body day added. So I can
Nice.
train 4 days a week instead of three, which
Okay.
I'm excited for.
Are you guys
Yeah.
pulling back lower body training then?
Not, no.
Okay.
I started to say not really because it's just like I rotate through like 8 different training
Oh, that's right.
sessions. So
Okay.
that takes me 2 weeks. But before it's really not pulling the training with lower body back at all, actually, because it's just one more per week. Because I was just doing 3 per week, and now I'll be able to do four since it won't be two upper lower body days back to back.
Oh, got it. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it sounds like training, there are like some shifts happening there. Are you guys like past that? Is your lower body training basically staying the same or?
Yeah, my lower body training has been the same for over a year, other than she added an extra glute day at one
Okay.
point.
Okay.
Yeah, but besides that, my lower body days have really been unchanged for actually probably like 14-ish months, somewhere around there.
That actually, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think that probably does tie well into the topic. You
Hmm.
think that is part of why your lower body has progressed so much in the last year?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know if you want me to go into it further since we're going to get into it, but
No, let's dig into that in a little bit, but that is a really good insight. Not that this like training can't ever change, but cool. No, well, I don't want to get too far ahead. Okay, cool. So it sounds like reverse is going well.
yeah,
We're feeling good. Adding more training soon. So good place to be. Okay, cool. Anything else
yeah.
on your end?
I was looking at my so I just take like posed check-in pictures now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't submit any of my lifestyle pictures since now the next goal is a show.
Okay.
So I was looking at my front pose picture this week and I was like, man, I've been doing so much core work, TVA work, and it just doesn't seem to be making that big of a dent. So I made it my personal mission to like attack this issue where like my abdominal engagement is just kind of weird, my ribs kind of flare out, which is partially could be genetic, partially is just my posing needs to get better. But I've been doing a lot of work on that. So I guess just kind of like calling myself out on it and holding myself accountable by making this public because I'm like kind of regressing my core work quite a bit. I talked with or actually had somebody come over to my house and work with me yesterday. That's like a postpartum PT, and I'm just sort of like regressing all the way back to doing like basically rehab prehab type work
Okay.
with it, which is super interesting and very boring. So holding myself accountable to doing that on a daily basis.
But the goal here is basically to, it sounds like, hey, my core is really strong, but I feel like it doesn't show up like I want it to, even when I'm super lean. So
Mm-hmm.
we're fixing that, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
And that's basically like, I'm going to better develop like rectus abdominis CVA, or what are you thinking there?
It's more of an engagement issue. So what I found out was, so have you heard of the term like ab gripping.
No.
So people talk about it quite a bit with like postpartum rehab stuff because you can get into this breathing pattern where instead of engaging your core correctly when you breathe, you just kind of like grip your upper abs down or like tuck your ribs down. But that kind of displaces pressure outward in
Okay.
your lower abs.
Okay.
So essentially, like, I'm instead of engaging my TVA with what I have been trying to do TVA work with all along, I'm just engaging my obliques. And so I kind of need to go less aggressive with it and engage less hard so that my TVA is able to work instead of like breathe out as hard as I can, really like draw in as hard as I can, and then just let my obliques take over. So what the goal is to then let my obliques chill out, get those to loosen up a little bit, get my TVA to actually engage so that whenever I go through those movements, it's actually taking on that work. And then that's going to help pull my abdominals in and look more aesthetically pleasing because I won't have that like distended looking TVA.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay. I was thinking initially what you were saying is this will help me like better develop my rectus abdominis, but it's more so like, hey, I'm pulling my midsection in more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Okay.
more so to keep from having it. So my abs just kind of like in my front pose, but always like just look a little bit more like pooched out.
Okay.
And so I've just been like, okay, I just need to hammer my TVA work. I need to do more planks, more dead bugs, more ab rollers, but I have just been doing them improperly.
This has been such an interesting. This is part of what I love about our team too. Like on today's or on our call we were on right before this, just our team call. I feel like both you and Natalie had so many like just new, different things you guys were talking about. Whereas like I feel like I just learned so much. Like everyone just is so just loves all this,
It's because
and
we've
like the
got
way we're just
problems we've
constantly
got to fix
learning.
on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's
Or we
it's
just start.
honestly like whenever you're going through stuff like that to fix for yourself because you can have the immediate feedback of I get into this movement or this position and I feel XYZ. It's for me so much easier to learn that way. So I really learn stuff well whenever I have problems with myself I've got to fix.
Absolutely. And I also think that is part of why, like, you posted it a couple days ago about like why you think every coach should do a photo shoot, which I
Hmm.
agree. I think it's so helpful. But similarly, just like as a coach, when you are, because I think it is easy, it is a weird thing in the coaching space where a lot of times by the time people start coaching, they're like not really as into the whole like physique development side of things as they used to be. And I think that really hurts you because if you're not like continually striving and improving and like, because that is really like a much, at least personally, I agree. Like, I feel like so much of what I know it has come from, well, I have to deal with this thing or I have to figure this out. And then this carries over to clients, or we're pushing to do this new thing, or I'm like getting leaner than I ever have, or whatever it is. Like, you learn so much more there. It seems like that versus just like I pick and choose a client. Like if I'm just picking and choosing glaring client problems to solve as they come up, again, like we were talking about today, versus like you don't learn as quickly versus something like this where it's like, oh wow, now I can see in 20 of my clients that I've been missing this thing that I need to address.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Makes and it's like, okay, well now I feel like I've got to take this not step backwards, but like I just feel dumb learning this whole new group of things, which
Yeah.
is fun and exciting, but also frustrating because you feel like you're like making progress on learning things, and then it's like, okay, well, and then the next door opens, and you're the stupidest one in the room again.
But it's how you know you're always learning, right? It's a good
Yeah,
place
yeah.
to be. And I do feel like there's always that couple weeks, couple months of feeling like you're an idiot with whatever it is, be it like this stuff more recently or like the functional health stuff back in the day. And then you like kind of have a breakthrough
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh wow, okay, suddenly this clicks so much more. And I like have the power to help so many more people
Mm-hmm.
or ruin their lives, whichever I want to do. I just have so much power. Um, cool. On my end, we talked about the photo shoot last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I have a photo shoot Monday. I don't know if I had a
Yeah.
date set, but that's on Monday. So getting close. Um,
Right in the depths of your peak week now.
yeah, we are basically, we'll probably do an episode about this next week, go a little bit more in depth. But basically, we really been pushing food quite a lot lower last couple days. Basically, been a ton of water. Food has been quite low. And then today, like yesterday, I was 250 protein, 100 carb, 30 fat. Prior to that, basically fat has just been non-existent. And then today I'm all the way up to like 100 fat. So I'm like 250 protein, 100 carb, 100 fat. But today, tomorrow, and then Saturday, Sunday is actually when we start like carving me up as well. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really interesting. And last week I was saying like I wonder if he's gonna fat load you. So I
yeah,
guess that's
yeah.
kind of what today is.
Yeah, that's like today and tomorrow. And then like fat comes back down as we bring carbs up. But
Hmm.
it is a different approach than I've taken in the past. So I'm excited to really experience that personally. And I know I have a lot of clients doing photo shoots coming up here. So it'll be really cool to like have all these different experiences to like what do I want to
Hmm.
pull from each of these for those people as well, where it makes sense for us to like really have a little bit more complicated peak. But it's been a super fun process to go through. It's like for sure this last push where we've been like dieting so aggressively, um, like the twice a day cardio. I feel like I'm mostly sick of just like I'm so sweaty all the time, dude. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a shower. I gotta do cardio again later. I'm wearing these like sweaty ass clothes, but like I gotta do cardio again later. So I
Yeah.
apologize. I feel like I need to apologize to my wife after this, but just always hella sweaty. But it's been really cool. I've really enjoyed going through this, and it's just been fun. Like it's not like a like oh god this is so hard. It's truly just been like really cool to see how I can like see once you get super lean, like how you can actually see so quickly the feedback in your body based on what you've done, right? Like the last couple of days even when it's been like he was like dude you're gonna look like he said we're gonna get super soggy, but basically we're super carb depleted, sodium is way up and carb and water is way up. So basically just like you're gonna be retaining a lot of water and you're gonna look terrible. And then uh once we carve you up, you're gonna look great. But it is cool to see. Like I don't love looking terrible, but like I took my pictures. So I'm taking pictures morning and night, sending weight morning and night. And I was like, the end of the day yesterday, I was like, damn, you were right. Like I did not
Yeah.
expect to look this much worse. But it is cool to even things like that, like being able to see the feedback of, okay, I pulled my carbs down even lower to like 100 grams and look how much different I look visually. It's just, I don't know. I just love I just like feel like experiencing new stuff like this, learning new shit like this just makes me so excited about it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I had Janae compete over this last weekend, and she's the first person that I've done that fat loading with.
Hmm.
And just like pulling that lever and then being able to see, okay, these day to day pictures and ramping that up and playing with carbs, like the immediate feedback that you get with that is just really cool, really interesting. Um, it I know today you felt pretty fatigued, pretty tired. Do you feel like the fat has made any difference, like cognitively, or like what differences have you noticed?
Yeah, I do for sure feel like the lower fat, and this was a new learning for me as well, which has been cool to talk to like both Kyle, my coach, and Dom, one of our mentors
Hmm.
about this, and both like, oh yeah, no, that's a real thing. And because I also have a couple clients who I am dieting more aggressively and have been like, oh man, like my brain is just foggy today. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, like we're gonna swap your macros around. Let's give you some more fat, and we should feel quite a lot better. And to like be able to right away, like, oh wow, that does make a big difference. But yeah, it has definitely been like I was saying, today is a lot better. I feel like I'm like wired right now because I've already had, I guess, just 20 grams of fat, but that's been way higher than like my fat intake has been for
Right.
weeks now. So it's like I definitely notice cognitively that does seem like it has a big impact. And that's like I'm cautious. I'm always cautious even like talking about that too much because I for sure think there is like a placebo side
Yeah.
of it, but I did definitely notice when we went to just trace fats, where it was like not any added fats outside of like, and basically the lowest fat protein sources I could find. So basically, my protein sources were non-fat Greek yogurt, chicken breast, and whey protein.
Hmm.
Right? That's like then I for sure noticed after a couple of days of that like everything is just taking me so much longer to do like work wise, and I'm just, like just frustrated. Like why am I so slow? Um, but very short time period as well.
Yeah.
Definitely not
Cool.
like something I would do long term.
Yeah. I'm
But
excited to see the
go ahead.
final the final product, I guess, Monday. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I am too. I hope it turns out. It's kind of a funny like. I feel like it's been so different than any other photo shoot that I've done. Like the last one I did felt like such a like journey, and it
Hmm.
felt like it like took so long to get there. Where it's weird now to think about because I've basically been dieting. That was 15 weeks. This is 16 weeks, but it doesn't feel. It's felt so different. Like most of it, I haven't really felt like I've been dieting. It's funny how different that has been, and then it's just like suddenly like, oh, we're doing a photo shoot, but it'll be really cool to see.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll probably do an episode about that this next week when we talk about it more. All right, so let's get into the main topic, which is how Andrea has grown her lower body, especially over the last couple of years as someone who doesn't build muscle easily. You made a post about this a couple of weeks ago that I thought was great and I thought would be cool to dig into a little bit more in depth, but really talking about again the things you've done specifically to build lower body, of course. So first, I would ask, have you always felt like building muscle, especially lower body, has like been a challenge for you, or is that a newer thing?
I think my perception of it has changed for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Um, I think I've said this before on the podcast, but like my perception was always just that I had big quads because my sister told me I had like tree trunk legs. And so I was
Okay.
like, oh, okay, well, my quads are already big. I don't want to keep working on them as hard. Like I can put my focus elsewhere, I guess. Um, and then just getting leaner makes that look so much different for sure. But like the I didn't have a ton of shape to my legs, which comes down to not having enough muscle in your quads. And so there's a couple of things that has changed this for me. And one was I went to a posing clinic that was put on by Chad Nichols and Kim Shashevsky. And she is like a several time Olympia winner. And she told me that my muscle is just immature. And I was like, oh,
That's such a nice way of saying you don't have very much muscle.
exactly. Yeah. And like I said, oh my gosh, I've worked so hard for so long. And it just made me sad. So anyways, clearly like I just needed more muscle. And as I've gotten more into physique development, that just becomes way more obvious. So that kind of shifted my perspective on it too. And then my coach just saying like you're quite a bit more top heavy, which part of it is I store more fat in like my arms and upper body than I think most women do. Like most women will get lean from the top down. Mine's just kind of even. Um,
Like those bingo wings. Just kidding.
not quite, not yet. Um, and I have like really wide clavicles too. So to be able to build a physique for a specific look on stage, I needed to bring up my lower body. So those two things kind of changed my perspective on it. Um, I think that it probably has always been a thing where I just don't build my lower half as much, but because I have just long limbs and um even when I was doing more like powerlifting style training, even though it's not hypertrophy focused, you would think that I would have built a little bit more muscle at least to start um than I did, and I think that's just my limb length and anthropometry is just not set up super well for building quads because I'm very much like a hip dominant squatter.
Right.
Um, and so until I started shifting my training towards that and really putting a big focus on it, I just didn't really build much lower half muscle.
I do think that is an important consideration though as well when it comes to shaping your physique is how tall are you? Because it does really like you're very tall and the like fear of you like looking super broad or like looking too stocky, right? That's not really something you need to be all that concerned about. I mean, I think for most people, it's not really something we need to be concerned about. But that I think when it comes to like developing a physique, even if you're like, hey, this person is my physique goals, they have like completely different limb lengths than you, or like
Mm-hmm.
how wide are your shoulders relative to your hips, right? You have like more of a square frame versus like a broader. It's just such an important thing to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then in the last few years, talk us through like from lower body specifically the progress you've made. Just kind of give us an overview of what you're excited about or like what compelled you to make this post. Who are you to say you've made great progress?
Yeah, I know. Major like
Sorry.
imposter syndrome with it because I mean relative to, you know, like you guys, you and Natalie and people who I would be comparing myself to, I'm like, oh man, so far to go compared to other
You
competitors.
must not have
But
seen that progress pictures.
but from where I've started, um I think that I have been like more excited to build glutes and hamstrings just because I really think that that just gives such an athletic look to your lower half, but it really needs to be like a balance of all three really. And I was way more excited for the quad gains than I was like really thinking I would be. Um More from like that like vastus medialis. I have never had any definition there, and so having that definition like that's to the inside of the knee um really just makes such a big visual difference in how
Oh
your
yeah.
legs look. And I think, you know, like what my sister was saying, like I have tree trunk legs. My quads are a little bit more developed up top. I've always been able to have like that um the separation more at the top of the quads, but then no shape down lower towards my knee. And so being able to make that much more proportional looks so much better. Yeah.
I would agree. I think that I mean quads and glutes it seems like have made and hamstrings. Hamstrings have made a ton of progress for you as well, which you know those have been a big focus, right?
Well, not
Or
quite
they
as
were
much
for
in
a
my
while.
training,
You
but
were
like
the
for
hamstring
me,
camp for a while, yeah.
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 For me it was definitely more of a focus, yeah.
Okay. So what do you think from whatever stands out, training, nutrition, lifestyle, like what are the biggest things you've changed? Because as you said, like when that lady said you have immature muscle, you don't have a good muscle maturity yet, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've already been working so hard for so long. And a lot of people probably feel that way. So going from there to where you're at now, like what do you think are the biggest difference makers?
Being able to push myself harder is a big one. Um and then having the higher frequency lower body I think was huge for me.
Okay.
So I went from just an upper lower split, which I think is great for most people. I went from that to almost all lower body training at first. Actually it was all lower body training at first. Whenever I first started the lower body specific training, it was just a couple sets of lateral raises and a pull down per week was my only upper body. And I made a lot of strides within that time because I was just train lower, recover, only training 3 days per week. And like I talked about recently on here, I was basically always sore whenever I was in that time frame of it. But then the other part of that is I was in a calorie surplus for over a year, and a pretty aggressive one at that. I gained pretty quickly. Definitely gained more fat along with it than I was loving, but it was all with this goal in mind. And so, I mean, ultimately, it was worth it. 'Cause, you know, lost it during the fat loss phase, and now have quite a bit more muscle, and we will be able to stay leaner through this next build phase.
Yeah. Okay. So the training, it sounds like the intensity, being able
Mm-hmm.
to push harder. was a huge part of it. Now, I know part of that was just you were in a health phase for a while, for a long time, and we weren't really able to. Was there, do you feel like your perception of like what training hard should look like changed as well, or no?
Uh, yes, and it was spread out over such a long time frame
Yeah.
that um it was like, okay, I was starting to shift my perspective of what training to failure looks and feels like. But at the same time, I was in a health phase and not able to put it into application yet. But just learning more, training with you guys as we were all learning more about it too. Um, every once in a while, I would just kind of like take the reins off on my training, even whenever I was not technically supposed to in my health phase. And
It's about a health
kind
phase
of
of the
like,
year.
yeah, kind of like learning that skill. And then once I was able to be on the other side of the health phase and into a build, I was able to really just do that consistently. So yeah, my perspective of it changed for sure.
I think that's probably one of the biggest missing pieces for most people as well. It
Mm-hmm.
is everyone again starts. I train hard, I train well, and oftentimes weeks, months of working through like, hey, we're still not there. We're still not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from a client perspective, it's very important to understand that like your coach's role number one is to help you get the result. And it's not always fun to hear, hey, we still have more in the tank. We can still push harder, especially when it's like, oh God, I feel like I'm already working so hard. But like from your place of experience, there oftentimes is like still a whole nother level that we can unlock. And that is ultimately a huge, huge part of what allows us to get the result.
Yeah. And I also know that there's probably another gear that I'll be able to find at some point with my training too. So even though I'm like failing my last reps most of the time, that doesn't mean that I've like tapped out my potential in how hard I can train. So
Yeah.
that's exciting too.
Training changing up a little bit was another big variable here. For you specifically, it was just big, big focus on the lower body and a lot more frequency there. Now, you mentioned, hey, I typically like a little bit more balanced split for a client, right? We might not be going all in on just building lower body. How do you think you would tease out, like, hey, maybe you are a better candidate for we are just really big lower body prioritization versus we just are going to take a more balanced approach?
When I've had somebody working with me for a few months already, that's usually whenever we'll be able to make that decision. So and also, I'm usually not starting that in a fat loss phase either. So, like, I had somebody this week ask me, when are we going to change training? It's been 4 months. And she's in the middle of a deficit. And so I was explaining, like, this is not really the best time for us to switch things up. Once we get out of a deficit, then you'll be leaner. You'll be able to see what muscle groups we really want to develop. And that's when we can skew things a little bit more in that direction. But typically, just from learning to push harder in lower body training, we're going to start to bring the lower body up even if we've got an even split of upper and lower across the week. Just that training intensity is enough to start bringing that up. If somebody already has that nailed down and they're starting to build a little bit quicker in the upper body than they are lower, or they just like have a very specific goal of their lower body, and we've already kind of maxed out the upper lower split. That's where we'll go more towards maybe a lower body specialization phase.
I also really like to start because a lot of times it'll be, hey, we could for sure afford to build more muscle across the board. And this person, like lower body, might be more of a priority, but similarly, wouldn't mind adding more tissue across the board. People might not even realize it, but when we see, okay, what's the goal physique and here's where we're at, okay, we do need to add across the board. I also really like to gauge how do we respond with just a little bit more balanced approach once we get you executing well and training hard. And then from there, we can see like, okay, do we really actually just struggle to build lower body? Or do we do super well with just like a lower volume, like standard twice a day frequency, twice a week, excuse me, frequency? and we don't need to hit you with more than this. But it is, I'd
Yeah.
really like to be able to gauge the response like that as well. And then from there, yeah, you can get a lot more specific. Um, and then a calorie surplus. We were eating plenty of food for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, I know there was, you mentioned like a good bit of fat gain involved and weight going up relatively quickly. Do you like, is that how it plays out for most clients? You feel like you make the most progress as well? Do we have to be okay with like, I need to put on some body fat, I need to gain a good amount of weight? Or how do you typically see that play out with a client?
I will say that I'm a lot less aggressive with the calorie surplus than my coach was, but I wasn't gonna
Same.
fight that. I
Yeah.
wanted to go all in on that um, way of doing things because that's why I hired her. But I typically will not be as aggressive with the calorie surplus. But when you say like we need to just be okay with a little bit of fat gain, that's still true. There still can be a little bit of fat gain that comes along with the build phase for more advanced clients. So while I'm not going to push somebody's weight up as quickly as mine went up through my build phase, that doesn't mean that we can be like somebody gets shredded in a fat loss phase and we're going to still stay shredded all the way through. Most of the time, we do need to be okay with a little bit of fat gain. And I say that because everybody's perception of like what they're going to be okay with is a little bit different. And while I might think like we're making incredible lean gains here, we've stayed super lean, we can see outside of abs, things like that. That person might be going, oh my gosh, I've gained 6 pounds. This is crazy. This is the heaviest I've gotten. And so our perceptions of it might be different. But it's important to remember, like, let's say you gain 6 pounds of fat in a build phase. That's like 6 weeks worth of dieting. It's super quick. That's something that is very easy to undo, to go to bring back down. But now you're left with, let's say, 10 pounds of muscle after the fact as well,
Yeah. No,
which will completely change a physique.
that's very important. And I do think the fear of weight gain specifically holds a lot of people back. Uh, I was addressing this with a few clients this week where it was like, our hunger is high, our recovery isn't good. Goal here is to build that tissue right now. We're not trying to get you leaner. We're actually seeing you get leaner. So we're gonna add more food here. Because remember, like this is the goal, etc. And then there were a few instances of like I was scared too, so I like underate my targets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I understand, but at the same time, it's like, dude, this is not helping us really. This isn't helping our cause. If like we want to be able to change our physique, requires adding tissue, right? If you want to always diet back down to the exact same body, like us being scared to ever specifically let weight go up. Not that it needs to go. Not you don't need to gain 20 pounds. You don't need to gain 10 pounds, right? It's all context dependent. But if you are already very lean, like adding tissue to our frame means adding weight via tissue to our frame, right? So I think that specifically is something that does just hold so many people back. And it's very, very important. But again, like the degree of it, like the more advanced you are. Because on the flip side, like if we're at a healthy body fat, does us gaining body fat help us build more muscle? No. Like it's a lot of times like, hey, if we're in a slight surplus, it might be a little bit of a byproduct of it. If we're more advanced, we are in a slight surplus, we are going to be in a more optimal position to build muscle tissue there. So a little bit of fat gain will come along with that. But it's not like, like it's not, hey, we need to push up body fat because like the more we gain or the quicker we gain, we build more muscle, right? That's an important distinction. I think then, because then sometimes people get too carried away with, well, I just need to like do the dreamer
Yeah.
bulk, and
It's
just
more, to me, I think of it more as like we want to just make sure that we're not dipping in and out of a deficit for half the week.
exactly.
Whereas if we're aiming for maintenance and trying to be overly conservative with it, we can go so conservative that, okay, 3 or 4 days of the week, we're actually in a deficit because we walked an extra 2,000 steps. And so muscle protein synthesis isn't as optimized. Whereas if we just added a couple hundred extra calories there, we might be in 100 calorie surplus occasionally, but most of the time we're going to be like just in that like maintenance to a slight surplus area where we're optimizing your muscle protein synthesis, making sure you're well fueled, you're feeling really, really good in the gym, and not and like accepting that tiny bit of fat gain that comes along with it, so that we're not like majorly undercutting the amount of muscle that you can gain for that phase.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the steps thing specifically is a really good point too. I've thought a lot lately about the move more, eat more, the like high flux approach. This and that does work very well for some people. Like if we can ramp up movement, we can ramp up food. Cool. Like we can kind of see sometimes body recomp, but also with like an I can think of a couple clients I've worked with in the past where, and I'm working with right now, where it's like, dude, we are super lean right now. But again, the idea of gaining body fat can be super intimidating. We see that, hey, recovery isn't good right now. We train hard, recovery is the issue. But so like, and we see a need for more food, so we ramp up food. And then a lot of times, it's, okay, so we ramp food, so I added like 2,000 extra steps this week per day to like compensate for that. It's like, so we're still kind of at a net neutral, right? If we're
Mm-hmm.
still like eating more, and this is more so think like, it's not like I went from 6,000 steps to 8,000 steps. This is typically like, hey, we're like 15K plus steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a lot of movement. And so there it's like so we didn't really get the result we wanted, right? So like, I guess we can keep ramping up food and like just, okay, eventually we're not having more time to walk, but that's not the approach I actually like to take. But it is just something important to consider there as well. I think there is again, there's a lot of fear around that, like more food equals fat gain. I need to undo this, but it's not. Also, if we're strategic about this, like if we're recovering better, we build more muscle, right? Your body will like our metabolic rate will increase. We'll have like more muscle tissue to shuttle glucose to. So it's just important, like working changes like that as well to consider what's the goal here is to facilitate better recovery, not just like can't always just be so focused on like what if I don't gain body fat or what if I gain body fat. I want to make sure I avoid that at all costs. That's really all I had on that. Um,
No, I fully agree. You can just come up with two completely different results with that small mindset shift. Like go all in. If I gain a little bit of body fat, okay, and letting go of that because you've probably gone through a deficit before. You know your body will lose fat. So
yeah,
just that little bit of a perspective shift is super helpful. It can really make or break your gaining phase, your building
absolutely.
phase.
Okay, last question. So you've worked with a lot of women who want to build their lower body. Any additional mistakes we haven't covered here that stand out that you think are important to avoid? Just things you commonly see with clients, if any.
I mean, I just want to reiterate the training intensity aspect of it. I know
Mm-hmm.
that's not something that we haven't covered and we talk about it all the time, but it's just because it's so important. Um, where I was at before whenever I was training was, I don't really know if I want to build my quads much more, scared to kind of like push those quite as hard or even like once I get to a place in the movement where it does start to get really challenging or burn, that's like probably hard enough, right? And it wasn't even that I was thinking about it from that perspective. It was just like, okay, that was really hard. I felt like I really pushed it. I fell within my rep range. So mission accomplished. But really bringing the intensity and of course like all of the right um like exercise selection and all of that is of course really important here as well, but the intensity is where I feel so many people hold themselves back, where week after week it's like come on, we've got more, and there's a
For being a
fear.
little bitch.
Yeah, totally my coaching style. There's like a fear holding us back from enduring that pain, so to speak, and we're just making it so much bigger in our heads than it needs to be. Whereas if you just like okay, this 1 week, just rip it. Just don't stop. Don't even count your reps. Keep going until you actually fail the last rep, and you'll see how much less scary it is than you've been making it out to be. And once you find that gear, like that's just where I see so many people really changing their physiques rapidly.
Yeah, I think that's an important key point here because I was going to say the exercise selection and the exercise execution are things we help a lot of new clients fix that previously have been another issue. But we could have the best program and you still aren't going to make progress until we are training sufficiently hard. And for most people, that is like right away, like programming is going to be on point. But until we are executing well, once we hit that point, or excuse me, we're training hard enough. Once we hit that point, then it's like, okay, we're like a month, 2 months into this. Now is when we're really going to actually start to see your physique change. So the sooner we can get there, the better. I think that's a really good, like, biggest take home here. All right, I have drank a ton of water today. I had to pee very badly. So before we hop off, any final thoughts, anything else you want to add?
No.
Cool. All right. Well, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoy the show, do us a huge favor. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. Wherever you listen, does just help us grow the reach of the show. Just get out to more people. If you would like to work with us, hit the link in the show notes to apply for coaching, and we will catch you guys next time.